Hello, and welcome back to Educator.com's Introduction to PHP course. In today's lesson, we're going to be covering what are known as expressions and operators. Specifically, we're going to be going over what expressions are and what operators are. Then we're going to go through a number of different operators that are available, and operators are things like addition, subtraction, so forth. And so we're going to have a couple of slides going over a number of different operators available in PHP. We're also going to go over a topic known as precedence and associativity, which are basically like rules that apply when you do multiple operations at the same time. So what is an expression? That's part of what the lesson is titled. Well, in PHP, an expression is anything that has a value. So literals have values, variables have values. They're all considered expressions. So, for example, here we have three different literals: an integer, a float, and a string. Those obviously are literal values. They have a value. They're considered expressions in PHP. Additionally, variables have values. We set values to them. So here we have an example of three different variables. We have a regular variable, an indexed array, and a associative array. All of those have values, and they're considered expressions in PHP. In this lesson, we're also going to be learning about operations, which are expressions in themselves, which means they have a value. And then in other lessons, we're going to be learning about constants, functions, and objects, all of which are expressions as well. And again, expression is just basically a synonym for something that has a value. So operators basically work on expressions. An operator will take one or more expressions or values, which are referred to as operands, which you may remember from like your algebra days, and it performs an operation on those two expressions, those two operands, to yield another value or another expression. Basically, the operators can be divided into categories based on the number of operands they work on. The ones that you're probably most familiar with would be something like an addition. You have 5 plus 1. Basically, it's what's called a binary operator. It has two operands. It has the 5 and the 1 that it operates on to yield a value. So in PHP, there are a couple of what are known as unary operators, and basically they're operators that work on a single value. The majority of the operators we'll see are binary operators for things like addition, subtraction, multiplication. And PHP has one operator that has three values known as a ternary operator. But the majority of the operators are all binary. So the first operator we're going to specifically talk about is the assignment operator. And this is actually something we've already been using in our code. So we've actually already been using an operator and maybe didn't even realize it. An assignment operator is a binary operator, and as you know, it's used to assign the value of something to a variable, for example. And basically what that means in operator parlance, it's assigning the value of one expression to another expression. So for example, with the assignment operator, which we know is the equal sign, we have this expression here, 98.6, the float, and we have this expression over here, body temp, the variable. And the assignment operator says take this value and assign it to the variable on the left. So we have two expressions there. Also, we've seen the array assignment operator, which is the equal sign followed by the greater than, and we've seen that in associative arrays where we have a key, and the way we associate a value, in this case, like maybe Sunday it was 75 degrees, we associate the number with it using the array assignment operator. And again, it takes the expression on the right-hand side and assigns it to the expression on the left-hand side. Now, because both of these operators, the equal and the array assignment operator, are operators, and we learned that operators work on one or more expressions to yield another expression. These operations that we've seen up here, let me erase this, actually have a value. It may not seem like it does, because normally you have something like 5 plus 1, and you know that you have two operands and it yields a value of 6. Well, this, because it's an operator, it has two expressions, it's a binary operator, it actually has a value itself. So this whole operation itself is an expression and has a value. For the assignment operator, the value of the operation is the value being assigned. And the way this might seem more apparent is, let's say we want to set A and B both equal to 5. So we have an expression like this, which is a legal expression, a legal statement in PHP. Basically, PHP evaluates, with assignment operators, it evaluates the one on the right first. So basically what PHP is going to do is it's going to take this operation, it's going to assign the value 5 to the variable b, and the value that that expression yields, which for the assignment operator is the value being assigned, is 5, is going to be assigned to a, which makes sense, but it's essentially as if we had written it like this. If we had done it explicitly, because when we assign the value of a to the value of the operation, assignment operation b equals 5, a gets assigned the value of 5. So there's arithmetic operators in PHP, as in most programming languages, and they have operators for all of the different typical arithmetic functions. There's an addition operator and a subtraction operator. You can do multiplication and division, and in PHP, like most programming languages, the multiplication operator is an asterisk. So if you want to multiply two numbers together, you would write like something 5 times 5 would look like that. And the division operator is a /. And so if you wanted to say 6 divided by 3, you would write it like this. So these four are all binary operators: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. There's also the negation operator, which is a unary operator, and basically that just takes the value of its operand and returns the negative version of it. So for example, if we have -5, say a equals -5, this minus sign is the negation operator. It's saying take the value of its lone operand, 5, make it negative, and then the expression or value that that operation yields is -5, and so -5 is what's going to get set to a. There's also another arithmetic operator known as the modulus operator, which is specified by the percent sign, and it's not as well known. But what it does is it's basically a remainder function. So when you divide two numbers, it provides the remainder. So for example, if we have 7 modulus operator 3, the result is going to equal 1. And the reason for that is if we divide 7 by 3, go back to our elementary school math days, and we get 1, the remainder is 1. And so that's what this function outputs. So that's a function to output remainders. So let's take a look at a little code to demonstrate some of the different operators, which we'll be able to look up from the educator website. Basically, just showing all the different operators in action. This is we're going to look at the HTML version of the code because it's prettier and easier to look at. So for the addition operator, it's a binary operator. You take a value on the left, a value on the right, it adds them together, and the result is, in this case, assigned to the variable a. So here if we have num equals 1, and then we add 1 to it, it's going to equal 2, and a gets equal to 2. And all the other arithmetic operators work basically intuitively the same sort of way. For subtraction, if we have num set to 5 and we subtract 1 from it, the result of this operation is going to be the expression or value 4, so a is going to get set to the value of 4. And so on for multiplication and division. 2 times 2 equals 4, 6 divided by 3 equals 2. So this is fairly intuitive. The negation operator, which as we mentioned before is a minus sign, which is the same as the subtraction operator. The way it's determined what it's going to be used is the context it's in. If it has 2 operands, it's treated as a binary operator, which means it's a subtraction operation. Down here, it has 1 operand, the num variable, and so this operator, the negation operator, blow this up a little bit. the negation operator here, the minus sign, says take the value of my one operand, num, the value of that, negate it, and then set it equal to a. So in this case, a is going to be equal to -1. And down here we have this same modulus operation we had shown on the previous slide, 7 percent sign 3. That results in a remainder. When you divide 3 into 7, you get a remainder of 1. So a in this case is going to equal 1. And just one thing to note is that the equation 7 percent sign 3 equals 1 is basically spoken 7 mod 3 equals 1. So that's kind of how you say it. Like here you'd say, for division, 5 divided by 5 equals, with modulus operator, you say 7 mod 3. And so that's how you speak it. So there's also what are known as the increment and decrement operators. And basically what these operators do is they're unirate operators. They operate on one value, and they increment or decrement the value of their operand by 1. So for example, well, first of all, they're represented by 2 plus signs and 2 minus signs together. This is the increment operator, and this is the decrement operator. So for example, we have the variable I equals 0. Right now, at the end of this statement, the value of I is equal to 0. Now we're going to perform the increment operation. So we take the variable I and we prepend it with the plus plus operator, the increment operator, which says take my operand and increment it by 1. So because I was equal to 0, we've incremented by 1. At the end of this operation, I equals 1. Likewise, for the decrement operator, it does the opposite. It subtracts 1, so it says take the value of I and subtract 1 from it. And again, that's 2 minus signs. And so because I previously was 1, we decrement it. I is now equal to 0. So basically, there's kind of like 2 operations going on at once here. I plus plus, which is, you'll see there's actually two forms of the increment and decrement operators. There's a pre-form and a post-form. This is the post-form. They essentially do the same thing as far as incrementing and decrementing goes. This says increment the value of I. It's essentially equal to, if we had written the statement, I equals I plus 1. So it's kind of an addition operation. We take the value of I, we add 1 to it, and then an assignment operation where we assign it back into itself. Now, as mentioned, there's a pre-form and a post-form, and that's basically either the operator goes before the variable or it goes after the variable. And what that does is that because this is sort of a combined operator of an addition and an assignment, whether you do a pre-operator or a post-operator determines what value is yielded by this expression, or excuse me, by this operation, because we know operations take one expression, perform some operation on it, and yield another expression. Well, with the pre-increment operator, the value of the expression plus plus j is the value of j after it's been incremented. So if we assume j is 0 to start off with, and then we use the pre-increment operator and set it equal to 1, j is going to be equal to 1 because it's been incremented, and num is also going to be equal to 1. Now, if instead we use the post-increment version, where we have the operator after the variable name, with the post-increment operator, the value of the operation is the value of the operand before it's incremented. So right now, because j is equal to 1, and from the previous line where we incremented 0 to 1, the value of this operation, because it's a post-decrement, is j before it gets incremented. So num2 is actually going to get set to the value of j beforehand, which is 1. So num2 is going to equal 1, then j gets incremented, and j equals 2. So it's sort of 2 different ways of using those operators. And typically, you don't see the post one as often. Typically, you see the pre-increment one, and because it's a little less confusing. And when you use the post-increment operator, I personally don't like using it in my code because it makes things a little less intuitive, and it adds some complexity to your code because you have to think, well, is this setting the value before I've incremented it or after it? So in general, you don't see the post operators that much. And the thing that we'll be using these operators for mostly is when we get to loops, which are ways to to repeatedly go over lines of code. Basically, they use a counter, and we use these pre-increment operator to go ahead and continually add one to the counter each time it goes through the loop, for example. So if we look at another page that demonstrates some of these operations, we can just see some of the same things that we went over here. If we have a variable num equals 1 and we pre-increment it, the value of num is going to be incremented, so num's going to be equal to, then that value is going to be set to a, so a is going to be equal to. If we reset the value of num to 1, and then we set a equal to the value of the post-increment operation on the variable num, well, the value of the post-increment operation is the value of the variable before it's incremented. So a is going to get set equal to num, which here is 1, so a is equal to 1. Then num is going to be incremented, so num equals 2. So here, in this one, a and num end up having the same value at the end of this statement. Here they have different values. This likewise applies for the decrement operators as well. So for example, if we have num equals 1 and we do a pre-decrement on it, both a and num end up having the value of 0. Now with the post-decrement operator, it's just like with the post-increment operator. The value of this operation is the value of num before it's decremented. So a is going to be equal to 1 because that's what num is set to. And then after num gets decremented, num gets set to the value of 0. So those are the increment and decrement operators. There's also what are known as combined assignment operators, and they're kind of like what we just saw with the increment operator. And they have PHP has them for each of the different arithmetic functions. So they each have a corresponding combined assignment operator. So for example, the addition combined assignment operator is a plus followed by an equal sign. This is the one for subtraction, multiplication, division, and modulus. And basically, it's kind of like when we had I plus plus, we said that was the same as if we did I equals I plus 1. That's kind of how these combined assignment operators work. So if we have num plus equals 10 is the same as saying num is equal to the value of itself, or at the beginning of the statement, the value of num plus 10. And so basically what it does is it adds 10 to whatever num is and then sets that variable and then reassigns the value to that variable. So it's kind of like the increment operator, except that here we have 10, and we can use the increment operator just always increments or decrements by 1. Here with the plus equals operator, we can add however much we want to the variable. So basically, this assignment is equivalent to this, and it's a combined assignment operation because basically the first thing you have is an addition operation that occurs. You take the number, you add 10 to it. The result of that, the value of that operation, is then assigned back into num. So here are some more examples. If we start off with num equals 10, and then we do num plus equals 10, at the end of this statement, the value num is going to be equal to 20 because we've taken 10, we've taken num's value, which was 10, added 10 to it, reassigned it back to num. Now, if we use for example, the multiplication combined assignment operator, basically this says take num, multiply it by 5, and then store the result of that back in num. So up here, num was equal to 20 at the end of this statement. So 20 times 5 is 100. So at the end of this operation, num equals 100. And it sort of similar pattern follows. If we do num and then use the combined division assignment operator, it's going to say take the value of num, which is 100, divided by 4, set that back to be the value of num. So in this case, num equals 25. And then the modulus operator, the same way. It's going to say take the value of num, which is 25, mod it with 6, and store the result back in num. And just to kind of show the mod operator again, we do 6 goes into 25. 1, we get a remainder of 1, so that's why this is equal to 1. And we have a page that demonstrates this as well. And basically, this page just kind of echoes what we had just done. It shows how all these look in code. We have a variable name, and then Here we've done the plus equals operator, and that's going to result in the value of num incremented by 10. Here we have the minus equals operator, which is going to say subtract 10 from the previous value of num and set num to that value. So num is going to be equal to 1 here. Here we see the multiplication combined assignment operator again. So it's going to say take num, multiply it by 20. So num is going to be equal to 20. Here we divide it by 4. Num is equal to 5. And then mod, we end up with num equals 1. So now we're going to talk about string operators. Basically, there's two string operators. It's one string operator known as the concatenation operator, and then it has a combined assignment version, just like the arithmetic operators. The concatenation operator is just simply a period, and it's an operator that is used to combine two strings or concatenate two strings together. So basically, it's a binary operator. So here we have the binary operator, the period, and basically it has two operands. On one side is hello, the string literal hello. The other side is world, and this operator says take these two values, these strings, concatenate them together, and then the result is the string concatenated. So message at the end, it actually, after this operation occurs, after this concatenation operation occurs, message actually becomes the literal now hello world, where they're all combined into one string. And you can use this with both literals and variables. So for example, we could create a variable called day, set it equal to Monday, and then we could create a message, a variable that's going to hold a message. We started off with a string literal, today is, and that's one operand of the concatenation operator. The other operand we can set to the variable day, and what that's going to do is concatenate these two strings together. So it's going to take today is, combine it with the string that day represents, which is Monday, and output that as one string and set it equal to message. So at the end of this, message is going to be equal to today is Monday. Now, just like the other operators, the arithmetic operators, there's a combined assignment version for this one too, and that is this here, the dot equals. And basically, it's just like how the arithmetic ones work, in that if we have begin dot equals end, that's saying take the variable begin, concatenate it with end, the argument on this, or the operand on this side of the operator, and then assign that back into begin. So let's take a look at a page demonstrating this. And this demonstrates the two examples that we saw. We have a string hello, and then what we've done is we've saved it in message. And then we've taken the variable message, which is equal to the string hello, and we've concatenated it with the string literal world. So at the end of this operation, message is equal to the string literal hello world. We could also do the same operation using the combined assignment operator, where if we set message equal to hello, as we did up here, instead of having to write a full expression like this, we can just do dot equals world, and what that's going to do is just concatenate the world string to the string that message already is, which was hello. And so again, at the end of this, message is going to be equal to hello world. So now one thing I want to talk about to sort of finish up the lecture is a topic known as precedence and associativity. And basically all operators have assigned to them a precedence and an associativity. And what those are for is when you have multiple operations sort of occurring in the same statement. For example, the statement right here, it has two operations. It has a multiplication operation and it has an addition operation. So when PHP sees that, it has to have rules as to which operation it proceeds with first. It could go left to right and say, okay, I'm going to do 5 times 6 first. The value of that is 30 plus 2, and the value is equal to 32. Now it could go the other way and say 6 plus 2 is 8, 8 times 5 is 40. Well, the rules in PHP are that multiplication has a higher precedence than addition, so when those two operators occur in the same statement, the one with the higher precedence, multiplication, gets completed first. So it's sort of the same thing as if we had written this in parentheses here. So the value of this expression is actually 32 and not 40. And actually, if you go, I have a link on the homework challenge page to the PHP website and the PHP manual. There's an operator precedence page. And what it does is it lists all of the different operators, and most of these we haven't seen yet, which you can just ignore for now. And basically it ranks them in decreasing precedence, or precedence. So, for example, as you can see, multiplication and division are at a higher level than addition and subtraction. So as we can see in the last example, multiplication happened first. Now what happens then if you have, and basically the way this chart works is that everything on the same line has the same precedence. So what if you have two operations that are occurring in the same statement where both operators have the same precedence? Well, then you defer to what is known as associativity. And what that says is determines if you have operators of the same precedence, do they get evaluated left to right or right to left? So, if we go back and look at the slide here, the multiplication sign and the modulus operator both have the same precedence. So, in order to decide which one gets operated on first, PHP defers to the rules of associativity. The associativity for these operators is left, which means they get operated from left to right fashion. So what's going to happen is 3 times 3 is first going to get multiplied, and then it's going to be modded with 2, as opposed to the other way around, 3 mod 2 times 3. So the result of this is actually 1 and not 3, because 3 times 3 is 9, and if you divide it by 2, the remainder is equal to 1, as opposed to 2 goes into 3, remainder of 1, 1 times 3 is 3. So this demonstrates left associativity. Now, as we saw on a previous slide, the assignment operator is right associative. So when we had A equals B equals 5, this statement contains 2 assignment operations. It's got 2 assignment operators. They have equal precedence. So how does PHP decide which one gets performed, which operation gets performed first? Well, the associativity rules say the assignment operator is right associative. So the right one is going to get performed first and then move to the left. So as we had, then the left one will be operated. So as we saw before, B equals 5 gets operated first, or that assignment operation occurs, and we know that the assignment operation, the value of an assignment operation is the value that was assigned. So this one occurs first, and then that value is assigned into A. So the assignment operator is an example of a right associative operator. Now, one other thing that you can do, which you may remember back in math days, is you can force precedence using parentheses. So as up here, we had seen that this gets evaluated, since multiplication has a higher precedence, it gets evaluated first. So we have 5 times 6 is 30, and we add 2 to get 32. If we wanted to actually do the reverse and add 6 plus 2 first, and then multiply times 5, we can force the precedence by adding the parentheses. And what that's going to do is tell PHP, let me do what's in parentheses first. 6 plus 2 is yielding 8. Then multiply that times 5. So that's how we get 40 here. Same way for this other operation. Because in this case, the multiplication and modulus operator have the same precedence. So associativity determines which operation occurs first. And associativity for these operators is left. So multiplication would go first. By adding the parentheses here, we're saying we want to do this operation first. So 3 mod 2 equals, has a remainder of 1, so it's equal to 1. 1 times 3 equals 3. So now the value of the equation changes. And we have some examples of that as well. So basically this is just kind of a review of what we had talked about, and talked about precedence, basically saying operations with higher precedence execute first. So in this case, which is a little bit different, and sort of shows the importance of precedence, because normally you know we read left to right and we think this operation occurs first, but in this example, multiplication has a higher precedence, so 2 times 3 is executed first, which is equal to 6 plus 5 is equal to 11, not 21, which would be the case is if we added 5 and 2 and got 7 and multiplied times 3. Now this example down here demonstrates associativity. Again, the modulus operator and the multiplication operator both have the same precedence, so the rules of associativity apply, which says the leftmost operation gets performed first and then proceeds to the right. So in this case, 11 mod 3, 3 goes into 11 3 times with a remainder of 2, so we get 2 times 2. This results in num being equal to 4. And that's not 5 as if we had done this. Instead, if we had done if we done the multiplication operation first, for example, if these were right associative operators, we'd have 3 times 2 is 6, 11 mod 6 is equal to 5. And so just want to note that these have left associativity, and as we talked before, some operators like the assignment operator have right associativity. And again, you can use parentheses to force precedence. So these examples that were shown above are now shown with parentheses to have them operate a different way. In this case, we can get the value to equal 21 by forcing the addition operation, the lower precedence operation to happen first. And then here, whereas the multiplication has the same precedence as the modulus operation, but those operators are both left associative, we can force the right operation to occur first with parentheses. So for today's homework challenge, basically what I'd like you to do is to go out and take a look at this link. It's on the PHP manual. And basically what it does is it shows you all of the different operators that are available in PHP. And you can basically, like I said before, ignore the ones that we haven't covered yet. But you can see where all the different operators rank, because when you're writing, when we eventually start writing arithmetic functions and doing calculations, it's going to be important to know how they work. And so here you can just see how the precedence works, and we can see that multiplication and division and modulus are higher up in precedence than the plus or the minus, or in fact the concatenation operator as well. So that ends today's lesson. Thank you for watching Educator.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.